Hello. Today, right now in this lecture, I will tell you about a very interesting and very important topic for patients with Peyronie's disease. These are the psychological aspects of this disease. And you should be proud of yourself for getting this lecture because psychological aspects, in fact, are usually only sought out by people with a well-developed sense of psychology, right? For those who are a bit less interested in psychology, this topic isn't very appealing. So, congratulations on reaching the understanding that your soul is actually more important than your body and that you need to take care of it as well. And if you are okay, if your soul is okay, and your understanding of your health is in order, you will help yourself as a rule. But if not, then it becomes more difficult. That's one. And the second point is understanding that a disease which causes penile curvature in men has a very significant, deep impact on the psyche, even if it's not consciously recognized. You might not even realize it, or you might pretend, not admit to yourself that it's hard for you, that you feel uncomfortable. And this leads to certain deep consequences. I'll tell you about them now during the lecture. Please listen carefully. So the first thing a person faces when they notice some kind of problem with their penis, what do you think that is? Of course, it's anxiety. He starts to worry and feel anxious. And where does he look for information? He looks for it on the internet, right? Or, well, hardly ever from friends. It's hard to find truthful information online. So the anxiety keeps growing, and he keeps searching and searching for information. The anxiety increases. At the same time, life goes on. First of all, Peyronie's disease progresses and curvatures start to appear. And in the initial stage, he faces confusing and unpleasant experiences in his intimate relationships. If he's married, of course, it's easier for him. With his wife, especially if she loves and supports him, it's always simple and easy for him. For such patients, we can easily cure this disease and achieve recovery. But if a young man led a free, active sex life, and he enjoyed it and found it appealing, then here, of course, he'll have to restrain himself somehow. Because in the early stages, the curvature might not yet be noticeable to his partner. But in the later stages, the curvature will definitely become noticeable. So guys, if you notice a curvature, go see a doctor immediately. Get off the internet and go see a specialist. You most likely won't be able to handle this condition on your own. Next point. The next point is the sexual act itself. And here there are three things to consider. I've described them in a separate video. I won't dwell on that right now. Please watch and listen because there are a lot of things you could end up with. The next point is seeking help. Men, in this situation, you definitely need help and you can help yourself. I've talked about this in a separate video about lifestyle. But also, and this is important, if you have someone you can turn to for help in this situation, you absolutely must go to them and ask for help. Because the psychological discomfort caused by Peyronie's disease is very intense. And I know this better than anyone because on one hand, I am a psychiatrist and have spent 20 years in psychotherapy. And on the other hand, I am a urologist who works with Peyronie's disease. And I see how patients react to chronic prostatitis. Not well. To a venereal infection. Oh, thank God, yes, it's over. And to Peyronie's disease. How uncomfortable it is, how unpleasant, how it disrupts his entire way of life, how it shatters his understanding of who he is and what he is like. How it changes his perception of his own body. Because the penis, for a boy and for a man, guys, it's no secret to a psychotherapist, is always a part of the body, some part, but it's special, as if it lives its own life. Very often a man refers to it in the third person, right? He, and so on. Why? Because there is, well, like an embedded intelligence, right? Something independent. And when such a part of the body, on the one hand, fun, appealing and interesting, but on the other hand, in some way independent, gets injured and you can't help it. That's where the sense of helplessness comes in. That's when psychological processes can take deep root in the psyche. And the scariest thing we get here, from time to time, I encounter patients who develop something called dysmorphophobia. These are patients whose cognitive perception is impaired. They don't understand that every man has a crooked penis. I even have a video on YouTube somewhere where I explain that a perfectly straight arrow-like penis simply doesn't exist in nature. Maybe, of course, it does exist, but I rarely see an erect penis. Maybe you should ask prostitutes if it's common. But even what I see in a non-erect state, it's always bent in some way or another because of masturbating with your favorite hand, or because it sits in your underwear in your preferred direction, and so on. Gradually, the penis always ends up curving in that direction. And that's why a patient who has already recovered from Peyronie's disease often still worries, as we say in Russian, that his penis remains curved. But it's not anymore. It's already normal. And that's a consequence of the stress that was neglected back then. So please don't let it go untreated. It's difficult to cure. Still, there's always some kind of scar left. Well, not for you personally, but for patients. And they keep a close eye on it, then get anxious, and so on. In particularly advanced cases, patients who are prone to this may develop anxiety that even leads to sleep disturbances and eating disorders. And if you suddenly can't fall asleep and your thoughts keep revolving around this illness, that's a perfect reason to see a psychotherapist. You shouldn't try to cope at home by drinking something like vodka or valerian in an attempt to forget. You shouldn't try to escape reality. Otherwise, something will remain. Some kind of cognitive disorder will be left behind. Next, I have a suggestion for you. If you consider yourself a cool person who doesn't have depression, anxiety, or any cognitive impairment as a consequence or worsening of your condition, then I have a proposal for you. What if you viewed this illness as an opportunity for personal growth? Let's say you don't have the opportunity to have a sex life as freely as you used to, whenever you wanted. But try to find something better than that. And I don't mean online games like World of Tanks, I mean some interesting relationships that are deeper, where the shape of your penis isn't what matters. On the contrary, go to people with this shape of penis who clearly might not be ready for it, and handle the situation so well that both of you end up enjoying it. Or maybe some other moves that you can come up with using your own intelligence, which will make you better than you were before. If you can do that, that's the mark of your character as a person, and then, as they say, everything will work out for your benefit. If you feel like you can't handle it, the first thing to do is seek support. The second thing to do is go to a psychotherapist. And third, don't try to solve this illness on your own. This is an issue where you won't fix the situation. You'll just bring yourself to some unpleasant event. And I wish you only pleasant events. All the best. It was a pleasure being with you. Goodbye.